So my name is Lesson1 and this is object-oriented browser programming course. I will share the screen now. So here I have our course Moodle page. Moodle page now visible. I will put this link to the chat so you can open it. Open it if you don't have it open. So let's first go through that. What is the general overview and objectives of this course? What is the grading and what we are going to be doing in this course during this period? Okay, so first thing, the course prerequisites. That to be able to successfully take this course, the student must have mastered basic programming skills with JavaScript. So we will be using JavaScript in this course. And to be able to take this course, you must understand what these things are and how to use them. So variables, control flow statements. This means things like loops and branching statements, and functions. So this is what is expected of you, that you can create programs, JavaScript programs with these things. And we're going to be building on top of these skills so that at the end of this course, the objective is that you, the student, you would be able to design and implement programs by using object-oriented programming principles with JavaScript. And that you would be able to write programs using basic functional programming principles, again with JavaScript. And then last but not least, that the student is able to write programs executed by the browser. This means a web browser, which manipulates the DOM with JavaScript. So this last part is what quite a few students asked in the last period when we had the HTML and CSS course, that why do not we use JavaScript or something to create some dynamic functionalities in the web application. So this last part is about that. And in addition to these objectives, we will also be covering TypeScript in this course. And the objective is so that you would be able to use TypeScript in implementing all of the above objectives. What is TypeScript? Well, if you don't know it already, you will find out later on. Okay, so then the grading. To pass the course, you must successfully complete weekly exercises with 100% pass ratio. This means that you must do all the weekly exercises and complete them all. So this is just a pass-fail criteria. Then the actual grade will be determined by an exam, which we will have at the end of the course. And the exam is done via a system called exam, which is the system in our school, which means that we have a couple of classrooms in the university campus area. Those classrooms, they have computer seats, and you can reserve a time slot, an exam time slot in those classes. Those classes, they are monitored. There is a camera supervision to prevent cheating. There are microphones to prevent discussions there. And the computers are wired so that there is no internet access except to the exam system. So that way you can do an exam given to you in total isolation. And that way we have the capability of having an exam period of 1 week. And during this week, the exam will be open, and then you can reserve a time slot which suits your own schedules and go on and then do the exam. So there will be an exam period of 1 week at the end of the course, and the grading will be determined by this exam. But before that, you must have completed the weekly exercises with 100% pass ratio. Okay, then we still have some remote students. So normally our lessons will be in classroom in the university campus. Today is the exception. But also in the university lessons, we will have the live streaming at the same Zoom address, and the recordings of the lessons will appear under this heading here in this Moodle sometime after the lesson. It is not immediate, so don't panic if you don't find the recording here immediately after the lesson. There might be a delay of even a couple of days. But usually I will try to get them there during the same day. Then whatever code materials or slides or whatever I share, they will be under this heading. Then under this heading, there are weekly exercises. There are already 2 exercises here visible. And we will be using a classroom feature in GitHub. And this is the first time when I'm using this classroom feature. So let's see how it goes. Here in this link is a video which explains how the classroom works from student perspective. So I recommend that you watch this video sometime, maybe later today. So here we have already two weekly exercises. So the first exercise is about Git and GitHub fundamentals. Here is the link. You will need to click this link to get to the assignment, and then you will need to accept and start it. So the purpose of this Git and GitHub fundamentals is to make sure that everybody here can use Git and GitHub at the level what is required in this course. Okay, then the first weekly assignments are here. So these are about reading and using objects. We have here deadline. This is basically on next week, Monday. So January 16 at midnight. And then January 15th, this is Monday morning at 8 o'clock. And these tasks must be done before this time. Then I will publish more weekly exercises here, and then you will see this list grow and the deadlines will be here. And when you do those exercises following this classroom system in the GitHub, I will see your solutions, and there will be automatic tests. So whenever you submit your solution, the automatic tests will execute and validate your solution. You can also run those tests at your own computer and to see that are your solutions passing the tests as expected. So when the tests are passed, then it means that your solution is good enough for the given problem. So this is an automated process. Okay, there is an exam retake question that will the exam retake be also in the mentioned exam period? No. If you want to do an exam retake, by the school regulations, you have about 1 year time to do it. So if you want to have an exam retake, then you can ask about that from me. But your objective should be so that you do not need an exam retake. Study well, study hard, learn everything what is needed during this period, pass the exam, then you are good to go and move forward. So the things what we are learning in this course about this object-oriented browser programming, especially about this object-oriented programming principles with JavaScript, these are critical skills for all the courses, programming courses, or let's say web programming courses coming after this course. So I cannot overemphasize this, that these skills are indeed critical, and the idea is that after this course, you have mastered these skills. For example, this year fall, before the Christmas, we had a project course going on for some second-year students, and unfortunately, in that project course, there was a certain amount of students who had not mastered these object-oriented programming principles during their first year. So obviously, they were in really big problems now in their second year, when the expectation was that they already can manipulate these objects, they understand how they are used, and they can then apply that knowledge in creating more complex real-life applications. So please understand that everything what will come after this period and this course will build on top of the idea that you have mastered object-oriented programming. So with that logic, you should not need a retake. Instead, you should study well and pass the exam during this period. Okay. Then about this these weekly exercises and pass ratio and why we have now an exam. So previously, in previous years, for many years, in my programming courses, I have not had exams. Instead, I have had programming exercises which were graded and reviewed, and then the exercises were scored, reviewed and scored, and that then determined the grade. But now is different, and from now on, I will not be using graded programming exercises anymore in my courses. Can you guess that what is the reason for this? That why are these programming exercises no longer valid solution for grading students in these kind of programming courses? Does anyone have any idea? Okay, there's a suggestion that to make sure that everybody implements their own code. Okay, always there has been few cases of people try to copying solutions from someone and then submitting them as their own. This is not a big deal, but now during the last 6 months or a year, a practical revolution has been made in computing and that these kind of things do not happen quite often. And this revolution is the introduction of artificial intelligence technology, AI, called this OpenAI ChatGPT and Microsoft GitHub Copilot, which is based on the same OpenAI technology. So this ChatGPT and Copilot AI technology are such that they can solve all the basic programming exercises what we are doing in these kind of courses. And they can solve them with perfect accuracy, almost perfect accuracy. And therefore, we in the school and I as a teacher, I have no way of preventing of students of using this technology, which by the way is really amazing. And I have no way of knowing if a student has created the solution on his or her own, or by simply giving the task description to the AI and then copying the solution and submitting as its own. So for this reason, in my opinion, grading courses based on programming assignments done by students is no longer a valid option in any school. So therefore, we are going to be moving to this kind of exam-based grading. And the exam system in our school is isolated from the internet. So that means that the students are also isolated from the AI assistants, and you must be able to answer to the questions on your own. So this is the reason for this. Okay. I have installed the GitHub Copilot in my own computer, and it is active in my programming environment. If you don't know what the Copilot is, here is a short introduction. This is the way how it looks like. You write a description that what you are about to do. You start to write maybe a function declaration, and then the Copilot will give you these kind of solutions. And these solutions are based on the information what you have given to it. And usually these solutions, they are pretty good. Sometimes they are even magically good. So this is a really, really good tool which improves productivity with a really big margin compared to working without this kind of Copilot tool. It allows the programmer to focus on bigger problems. For example, here is now an application or a task that, okay, get average runtime of successful runs in second. This is what the program has written. And then the AI tool, the Copilot, generates a solution, a function, which does this task. And usually this is exactly what the programmer had in mind. And usually it works immediately out of the box. So now in school, usually in these kind of programming courses, we are dealing with only this kind of small tasks. But in real life, these small tasks, these are just really small building blocks of these bigger applications. So in real world, this AI assistant allows the programmer to solve these bigger problems and saves time on writing these small building blocks. But now in school, when we cannot expect you to create these big applications before you know how to write these small building blocks, now the AI can create these building blocks. But now you might think that, okay, you can ask AI to do my assignments. Yes, you can do it. But if you do that and do not study what the AI suggests to you, you don't learn anything. And if you don't understand what the AI is suggesting you, your solution is worthless. And you, rudely to speak, can also be pretty worthless as a programmer. Because if you want to benefit from this AI solution as your assistant, you will need to understand everything what the AI suggests to you. You cannot use this technology without understanding what is the AI suggesting to you. So for example here, which Twitter tweet from the user. If you can understand and you can write this stuff on your own, then you are ready to use the AI suggestions. But if you do not understand what these things mean, then you are not ready to use the AI assistant. So this AI, this is a huge productivity benefit when you know and understand that what is it giving to you. But using this without understanding and without the capability of writing these things on your own, this is not a good it is not a good position to be. And what happens now is that previously, if you think about the expectation level for a junior programmer, previously it was totally okay that if a junior programmer would spend some time on writing small pieces for a bigger application and spend a while on doing it. It was totally okay, understandable that, okay, as a junior programmer, they might have some problems in creating, for example, this kind of code, and there might be problems. But now the expectation level is that a junior programmer, together with these AI assistants, has far higher productivity levels than previously. So this, of course, means that you basically, when you graduate from school or when you're applying to companies in the junior programmer positions, the expectation level of your understanding is now gone up, because you no longer have to or basically have the time to spend so much on, let's say, syntax problems or things like this, because the AI assistant will deal with those. You must deal with the logic. So you must totally understand the logic, what you are doing, why, and then you must understand what is the AI giving to you. So this is not not as as maybe as a happy situation as it first seems. So this will save you some time on doing some quite simple and repetitive tasks, but it also means that you must understand that how those things are done, and then that you are capable of utilizing that added speed and capability given to you by these AI tools. Okay, so this GitHub Copilot, this is now an application of the same technology as the ChatGPT. I don't know if you are familiar with the ChatGPT. It's the OpenAI product. This Copilot is the same. And this Copilot can be installed as an extension to at least Visual Studio Code. So if you have not yet installed Visual Studio Code, I suggest that you install this as your programming tool. So the GitHub Copilot can be added there. I don't know what are all the IDEs what the Copilot supports, but at least Visual Studio is supported. Naturally, because Visual Studio is a Microsoft product and GitHub is a Microsoft product and Copilot is a Microsoft product. Okay, so here they have this individual pricing. This is the pricing for individuals. This is the pricing for business. For students and for teachers, there is a free plan. So it's this GitHub Global Campus. So I will put this link here. You can do the application if you want. Of course, you are not required, but if you want to take the Copilot into use, you can do it here with the Global Campus. So when you have applied here, then you will have in your GitHub account this access to this Global Campus, and the Copilot will be granted. And then in Visual Studio Code, in extensions, you can go on and install the Copilot. Here I have it already installed. It says disable uninstall. If you don't have it installed, it will have here an install button. And then here is the subscription required. So you'll need to click here and activate the Copilot so that it recognizes that now you have access to the Copilot subscription as a student. And then it's operational. When you see here this kind of icon, this is the Copilot icon, then you know that it's active in your IDE. Then the ChatGPT. Here is the ChatGPT. So if you have not yet tried this, I recommend that you try it. So if you Google ChatGPT, it looks like this. Try ChatGPT is where you get the access. You will need to have an user account to the OpenAI. So if you don't have it, you need to create it. So this ChatGPT is this kind of discursive AI technology, and you can ask from it basically anything. Here are some examples that what I have tried today. I asked that what is object-oriented programming, and it gives me an example here. Object-oriented programming is a programming paradigm that is based on concept of so-called objects, which can contain data and code that manipulates that data. In object-oriented programming, an object is self-contained entity that represents a specific aspect of the problem being solved. And objects interact with each other by sending messages to each other, and they are responsible for their own behavior and state. This is absolutely correct. And then it continues. Then I have asked, what is an object in JavaScript? Then it explains, this is again absolutely correct. Object is a collection of key value pairs. The keys in object are also known as properties. The values are the property values. You can create an object in JavaScript using object literal syntax, which is with these curly brackets. Then it gives you an example. This is where an object looks like. So this name, age, occupation, these are now properties of a person object. John is now a value of the name property. 30 is now a value of the age property. Teacher is now a value of the occupation property. Then in your application, you can access these properties from this object by using the dot notation. Here it's shown person.name. If you console log it, it will output John, because the value of the name, which was initialized here, was John. Value of age was initialized to be 30, so you should get output 30. Then it continues that you can use square bracket notation to access properties of object. So in the same way what you have used arrays before. Arrays, in fact, in JavaScript are also objects. So this ChatGPT is technology which allows you to ask basically anything. And this is a really, really, really good learning tool to learn any kind of programming language. Here I have asked about what is an object in JavaScript. Okay, it gave me JavaScript example. I could just as well ask that what is an object in Go, in PHP, C++, Java, or whatever, and it would have given me information regarding that language. It can also create you code in the same way as the Copilot can. So here I have asked it to create a function which accepts an array of numbers as a parameter and then calculates a sum of those numbers. And it should use a loop inside and even create a bug so that the last element is not calculated. So then it gives you code. If you are wondering that, oh yeah, by the way, what is the dot? What does it mean in JavaScript? You can ask from the AI. And then it will give you a really, really big and long explanation, again, which is correct. What else can you do? You can give code to it. You can say that, ask that, what is wrong in this function? You explain that what should it do. Then you give code. And then the AI, amazingly, will actually solve this and indicate that where is the bug, that this is the kind of bug, and this is the way how you fix it. Here I have tried that, okay, what about C++? A class for dealing with vectors, so these mathematical vectors, and then it should have a method to calculate the length of the vector and an intersection of two vectors. I even had a typo here, no matter. It gave me an example of a class which deals with vectors and how to calculate the length and the intersection. I have tried an example with Arduino. It's this kind of embedded programming platform. Okay, I have a blinking LED. I want to do this so that it blinks when I start a button. It explains that how is this done, and then it gives me a code which would work in the Arduino. It also can understand Finnish, but in this case, the answer was in French for some case, but the code was correct. So for basically, when you are programming and you want to ask something, you have some question that, what does this mean? What does this symbol mean? Or how do I do something? You can simply go here to the ChatGPT. Let's see if I still have the session open. Oh, now they say that they have a high demand. So there is some kind of problem now using this. This can happen, but most of the time this runs just fine. So you can ask here that, okay, what is the difference, for example, of if you would be wondering these things, for example. So you can ask, let's say, can it respond in this high demand situation? Maybe it's now that it cannot answer, but due to the high demand. But these kind of questions you can ask from it. So this is a really good tool for you to use with when you are learning programming. So this is like having your own personal teacher next to you. It is always available, well, except in the high demand situations. It is untiring. It can answer basically all of your questions, and it knows a lot of things. So here you can see Now it's giving me the answer. The single equals character is used for assignment. The 2 equals character used for comparison, and also 3 equals character used for comparison. And then some examples. And then it explains that what is that, okay, with the 3 equals characters, there is the type coercion. Okay, what is this type coercion? You could continue. What is type coercion if you don't know what this means? And then it will continue. So yeah, I recommend that you use these tools. But if you take the path that you have these assignments and you don't try to do them on your own, you just give the assignment description to the AI. The AI will solve it. These assignments, what we have for the weekly assignments, they are so simple that the AI will have no problem on solving these. If you do it so that the AI solves them for you, you will learn very little or even nothing. So I recommend that you would always try to do the solutions on your own. And use the AI as your help for the solution only when you absolutely cannot complete it. And for this reason, because this AI can solve these exercises so good, that is the reason why for the weekly exercises I have set 100% completion ratio, because everybody can get these assignments completed by using the AI. So I hope that if you cannot yourself do some of the assignments, when the AI solves them for you, that you would spend time and understanding that what did the AI suggest to you and why does it work. That way you can learn from it. Yeah, there is the link. So you will need to have the account to the OpenAI. So these are really amazing tools. What are now available, and this is basically a revolution in software engineering. A couple of years ago I would not have thought that this is actually possible, but now it is possible. It is a really good thing. It improves productivity, but as I said, in my opinion, it can be a quite big challenge for students and for junior programmers because the expectation level has and will go up. Expectation level of the productivity will go up. So it requires from you more to understand the underlying logic so that you can then utilize the information what the AI assistant will give to you. Because at least for now, the AI cannot build these big real-life programs. It is at best in creating these kind of small pieces like this. And real-life programs are built up of this kind of pieces. But alone, these pieces are not really useful. All right. So we have first thing what I want to make sure that everybody can, before we move into actual programming part, I want to be sure that everybody knows that what does debugging mean and how do you do it with Visual Studio Code. Here I have a Git repository. I have shared the link to the chat. So this repository I will use for all the code what I create and write during these lessons. And here will also be any code what I want to give to you during these lessons. So here, now there is this lesson 1 and this debug exercise JS. So I recommend that you clone this repository, not download as zip, but actually clone this repository to your own computer, because later on you can then pull the updates from this repository, and it's far more easier than dealing with the zip download. So clone this repository to your own computer, and then you will have access to the lesson1 and debug exercise.js. The debug exercise.js looks like this. So there are two functions here. This is not yet about this object-oriented programming. These are about the prerequisite skills. You remember variables, control flow statements, and then functions. So here we have a function called sum. The purpose of this function is to calculate the sum of the two numbers given to it as parameters, parameter A and parameter B. So here we can see if we have tested, we can run this here, node debug. Oh yeah, and by the way, we are using Node.js. So if you don't have yet Node.js installed, Node.js is an open source cross-platform JavaScript runtime environment. It allows me to run these JavaScript applications in my computer. So that's what Node.js is used for. So you will need to install this Node.js. You can install this LTS, long-term support version 18.13.0. So you will need to install this. Okay, so when you have it installed, you can run it in your terminal. So the terminal is available here in the Visual Studio Code. Here on the top menu, terminal, new terminal, it gives like this. Or in the Windows command prompt, for example. If you run command node and -v, it should say, what is the version? Okay, I have version 16, no matter. It still works just fine. So when you execute node -v, you will know that, okay, now I have the Node.js installed successfully in your system. Okay, so when you want to run the application, you can use the command node and then the file name debug exercise.js. So I can run it here in the command prompt, or I can run it here in the terminal window of the Visual Studio Code. Both ones are just fine. So node debug exercise.js. And then I will get the output, whatever the program is giving to me. Here it says 6, 6, 14, and 4. Okay, what do these mean? So I have 4 outputs, 4 console log statements in my application. So here is the first one, 6. Sum 5, 1, result is 6, so that's the first one. Then the second one is sum 5 and 2. Result should be 7, but I have here 6. Okay. If I calculate 5 plus 2, the result is not 6, so there's some problem there. Then I have a third console log here at line 15. So sum 13 plus 3 should be 16, but hey, it's only 14. So obviously the sum is broken somehow. Then I have here an array sum. The last console log statement, what I see here, result is 4. So the logic of the array sum would be to take an array as parameter and then an array with numbers and then calculate the sum of those numbers. So if I have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the sum of these numbers should be 15, but here it's giving 4. So obviously I have now some problems in my code and I need to fix them. So I need to start debugging. Debugging means that I try to fix my bugs. A bug is a problem in the application, in the code. Okay, what kind of options do you have when you need to debug an application? Or what comes into your mind? What kind of options do you have? You can write in the chat what kind of options come to your mind. What are the options available? Yeah, you can write in the chat, or you can speak to the microphone. Either way is just fine. So Rachna Kumar, you raised your hand. Do you want to comment?
Right click, then we go to the debug option. We can see what is the error, and the error is written a+1. If we type the a+b, then the answer will be the same.
Okay, the voice was quite faint. I heard that you can go to the debug option. So here you can go, there is a run and debug option here in Visual Studio Code. So if I understood you correctly, Rachna, it means that you can start a debugger application, which allows you to step through the applications and look the code line by line, execute it line by line, and see the variable content. Correct, that is one option. So in my opinion, you always have, no matter what is the programming language or programming environment, you always have, or at least should have, at least these three options in your use. Option number one, this is really simple. You can try to read your code and to spot the problem. What might be the problem? Can you spot the problem by reading the code? What is the problem here in the function sum? If I calculate 5 and 1, I expect that it should be 6. I got 6. Okay, it works. If I calculate sum 5 and 2, I expect to be 7, but I get 6 as a response. So if I simply try to read the code, can you notice the problem? Okay, good. There is a chat. Yeah, you can see there is the problem here with the return statement. Here is a problem. I'm always returning a plus 1. So this is the reason why if I have 5 and 1, I got what I expected. It works. But if I have more tests, 5 and 2, oh, it doesn't work. It should be 7, but it's actually 6. Okay. And here, by the way, you see the reason why you should always have multiple tests in when you create some functions. It might be if you have just one test, if I would have tested this with this one, I might have seen that, okay, yeah, it works. And then sometime later on, when in real life somebody would have used it, oh, it's not 7, it's 6. Okay, but the problem is here, a plus 1. It should be a plus b. Okay, this is one way what you can do. You can read the code and try to find the problem. That's one thing. Many times the code is quite complex and it's difficult to see that what is going on. So then option number 2, you can usually somehow print some information from the application to some log, to some console, to some terminal, or somewhere you can print something. So what it would mean is that, for example, using that option, if I would debug this sum function, I could write here console log statements and saying that parameter a value is, I can write here a, and then I can go on. Here you can see, by the way, the AI is suggesting me that this is what you mean. And this is exactly what I mean. So now it's showing this in gray. And I simply hit tab, and this is exactly what I want. Okay, so here we are printing here the variables here. Okay, a plus b. So we could see that next time when I run it, I see here, okay, parameter a value is 5, b value is 1, the output is 6. A value is 5, b value is 2, output is still 6. Hey, what is problem? So using these console statements, I could maybe see the problem. So for example, here we could, here in the array sum, I could, for example, here put that console log, and this is saying that, okay, loop index is for example here I could print here, and then that console log, okay, total is total. I could add some console statements here, and by using these console statements I could see that what is the situation in the application at that moment. So this is one option. So here you can see I have now printing these loop indexes 0, 1, 2, 3, total is 4. So you can clearly see that, okay, this loop is executing 1, 2, 3, and 4 times. And we have here 5 elements here and so on. So, okay, so this is one way. So what you can use. Print something to the console, to the terminal, to the logs somewhere, and see that what is the situation in the application. I will now undo these console statements from there. Then the third option, which is usually the most powerful option, is to start the debugger, which was mentioned earlier. And here in the Visual Studio Code is this kind of icon here on the left, run and debug. So when you click there, it gives you these kind of options, run and debug. This Visual Studio Code can be used with, and this debugger can be used with multiple programming environments. And this run and debug would allow you to create this kind of launch JSON file, which has information that how to start the application, how to configure the debugger, and so on. But now, when we have a simple JavaScript situation, this will do this middle one, JavaScript debug terminal. I can click there, and then so now when it opens this debug terminal, I start the application, and it changes this UI now to this kind of UI. You can see that now the application is doing something. It has printed out these values. So it has executed this line, it has executed this line, it has executed this line, these three, but it has not yet executed this one. And then we see this kind of yellow line or brown line here in the line 3. And there is this kind of arrow symbol and this red dot. This means now that the debugger has stopped at a breakpoint. So this red symbol, what I can activate and deactivate by clicking on the left side of these numbers, is called a breakpoint. And when I add these breakpoints, you can see that here on the bottom left, it adds them to the list of the breakpoints. So a breakpoint is a location in the application where the debugger will stop when the execution reaches that point. So now the execution has stopped here at line 3. So the function array_sum has been started. If I hover my mouse cursor over these numbers, and this works, by the way, for all the variables, I can see that what is the value. Here I can see that, okay, numbers is now an array. It has these values for these array indexes. So for index 0, value is 1, index 1, value is 2, and so on. I can see that value. I can see here that what is the value of total. And then it is about to execute this for loop. And this for loop is made up of basically 3 statements. This is the first, second, and third. So we are currently on the first statement. That's what the yellow symbol is there showing. Now I have here at the top, I have some controls. Here, this one, this continue, this looks like a play icon from a VCR or something. It says continue. This means that when I click here, the application execution will continue and it will stop when the application ends or when the next breakpoint is encountered. I have here a step over, which means that it will execute the current line and then step to the next line. And if the current line includes a function, it will execute that function and then wait on the next line, but not go inside the function. Here is the step into. This means that it will execute the current line and then step into a function inside a function and stop there at the first line if it's a function. Then there is the step out, that if we are in a function, we can click this and it will execute the function and then stop once the function is executed. Or we can restart the whole application. Okay, I will now click the step over. You can see that the yellow arrow now jumped to the second statement in the for loop. So now we are checking that if the I is smaller than the length of the numbers, this is the loop condition. And the length of the numbers is 5 and -1. So we are basically checking that if 0 is smaller than 4, that is true. So it means that the loop execution will continue. Now it goes inside the loop. And now it shows that it is about to execute this line. It has not yet executed, but it is about to execute. So you can see if I hover my mouse cursor here on top of the total, the value is 0. And numbers looks like this. And here I have, okay, it's a 0. And in addition to this mouse hovering, here on the top left, I can see a list of these variables. It shows in the current block, this is the current an area between these curly brackets. In this block, I have a variable called I existing. It has been declared in that block. Then inside this array sum function, I have this variable called numbers. That's the parameter. And then I have the total variable, which was declared here at line 2. So I can see the values of those here as well. Okay, now I will execute this line 4. I click here on the step. Now I see that, okay, the total has just been changed to number 1. You can see it here as well. Okay, so does it make sense? Yeah, first number was 1. Okay, so far so good. Now it is here in the for statement last part, so it checks that what is it going to be doing with the index. So there is the I++. It means that it will increase the index by 1. And now it's at the loop condition checking. We are checking that is the I smaller than the length of the numbers. 5 minus 1, that's 4. So is number 1 smaller than 4? Yes. So the loop will continue. Now we are again in the loop. The total value is 1. And when we execute this line, the total value is 2. Hey, wait a second, what is going on? It should not be 2, it should be 3, because 1 plus 2 should be 3. So now we have noticed that, oh yeah, hey, I have here this 0. This is always taking the first element of the array. And for this to work, what should I change? What should be the numbers, the index here instead of the 0? Do you know? If I want to calculate the sum of all the elements in the array. Yes, so now we have the element is 0. So we're always taking this first element. So when this loop runs for 4 times, it takes this number 1 4 times. So 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus and so on. Now when we put here the I, so now the index grows. So we're going 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. Okay, we change it to I. I need to save and restart. See, does it restart work? No, it doesn't work. Maybe I need to click the disconnect and JavaScript debug terminal and start it. Now we are here at this debugger statement. I can disable that. Click continue. We want to jump here to line 19. And now when we go from here, we go to the array sum and it will stop here at line 3. Click play. It will stop there at line 3. Now it initializes the loop. And now we can see, okay, total, it's 0. Total is now 1. And now when I execute this one for the second time, total is now 3. Okay, now we are, okay, good. Loop condition, this is about to check, total is 3. Now we're going to be adding 3. The I is 2. So it's this one what we're going to be adding. So 3 plus 3 should be 6. We are there at 6. Loop condition, okay, total is now 6. We are going to be adding I3. So we're going to be adding this one. So 6 plus 4 is 10. Total should be 10. And we check the loop condition. And hey, wait a second. We have another problem here. What is going on? The total is now 10, but we should have here at, this should be 15. What's the problem here? Why does this loop not work? I think the problem is here because we have the numbers dot length and -1. So this length of the numbers is 5. And if we take a -1, it's 4. So we are running the loop one time less than it should. Okay, let's fix this. Okay, like so, numbers, length, and then we start this again. Let's go in there, and then now we can see, here we can see the total as it changes when I click. Okay, it doesn't change. Total is 6. Total is 10. Total is now still 10, and now it's the last time. Now total is 15, and now there's the loop condition check. The I is now 5, and the length of the numbers is 5. So 5 is not smaller than 5. It is equal. So this loop will now end, and we have a total of 15. Yes, it works correct. All right. So here is this use of debugger. And no matter what is your programming environment or language, you should always be able to have the debugger running in some way or another. It is a really valuable tool. But you have also, of course, the two other capabilities available as well. Reading the code and then the console statements. There is also something else what you can do nowadays. Here is the function which was broken in the first place. Let's see if we go to the ChatGPT. There's still high demand, maybe it works. What is the problem in this code? It should calculate the sum of numbers given in the array, in the parameter array. So we ask what is the problem. We we write that what should it do, and then I can put the code there. And at least previously when I had tried this, it correctly analyzed the function and gave me information that, okay, yeah, it works. There is a bug in the array sum function. Inside the loop, value of numbers 0 is being added to the total. Should be with the I. So it detected that one. Then it gives you an example. Let's see, does it detect the -1? Yeah, so here it detected the -1. It says here that this will add up all the elements in the number arrays except for the last element. So it did not detect that as a bug, but it noticed that this is what is happening there. So if you read this carefully, you should be able to detect this one. So again, this is a really powerful tool. So fourth debugging tool in your disposal. And many times when we as teachers, students, they ask us questions like this. exactly like this. I receive an email which might say that, what is the problem in this code? Usually, the student does not give me this information, that what is he or she expecting. Usually it's just, why doesn't this not work? Why doesn't this not work? And then maybe there is the code sometimes. So you can also use this ChatGPT AI like this. When you have a problem in the code, you cannot detect what it is. You can ask the AI, does it notice what is the problem? But you should always also give information to the AI that what are you expecting? How should it work? But this is also quite good. And for the students, it's really, really good. So, okay, so now let's say that it would give you this answer, but perhaps you don't know that what is this plus equals? What does this plus equals mean? So you could continue. What do the plus equals mean in the above code? So you can ask also these kind of small detailed questions. It says that this is now an operator, and it adds it there. So as I said, this is a really, really powerful learning tool, and I recommend that you take advantage of this. But not just so that you take the answers without understanding what is the answer, but you can really study the details of the code and so on. And this is basically a tireless teacher, which is always available, no matter what is the time of the day. So highly recommended. Okay, do you have any questions about this debug?
Excuse me.
Yeah, wait a second, I will increase the microphone volume. Okay,
Can you hear?
yeah, yes.
Could you please show again how to debug that? I don't remember. On the top, there's like play or something mark.
Okay, so
When you set the break point.
yeah. So what you are asking is that how to start the debugger. So
yeah.
you must be here in the Visual Studio Code in this Run and Debug menu here on the left side.
Yeah.
And then you must, if you have a debugger, if you want to start it, you should have at least one breakpoint. So for example, here I will add here at line 17. Now there is one breakpoint here at line 17. And then here, this JavaScript debug terminal. You can do it here with the run on debug as well. I used this one earlier. So JavaScript debug terminal, and then start the application. I write here node and then the file name. It starts, and now it has stopped in the breakpoint.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, all right.
I just want the top there, that mark come.
Yeah. And this one also works, this run and debug. So this JavaScript debug terminal button here is quite new. Last year it was not there. So if you click here run and debug.
No, I just choose JavaScript debug.
Yeah, but you can also use this one. So if you click run and debug, you will see this kind of select debugger. You can choose here Node.js, and it will start the debugger in the same way. This is maybe easier because you don't need to start the application in the terminal.
Okay.
Okay, then you have the controls. Yeah, so the Moodle link is here in the chat. If I accidentally use the debug, not JavaScript debug, how can I go back to the JavaScript debug? I don't quite understand what do you mean? So okay, now it starts here.
Because at the first one, there's a wrong and the debug. I was using this one.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't use the next one. Then after I run this one, I cannot find the JavaScript debug.
Okay. I don't know. It doesn't work like that for me. So I don't know. What are you actually seeing?
Is this kind of external I need to install or I don't need to install?
I don't
Is
know.
this
Sorry.
debug?
I don't know about this. What does it mean install?
Because we have the kind of extensions. Extensions we can install, like if we are using the React, we can install that. Or if we are doing the Python, we can install this kind of extensions.
Okay.
The lower part.
The extensions are not related to this debug.
Okay.
So if you are in the run on debug, you should see this menu.
Yeah, the beginning I saw. Then after
Mhm.
that, I cannot now.
So
I-
what are
I
you
was-
seeing?
I was used. It's on the debug, so I don't know. Is it because the terminal or somewhere?
Well, you can share your screen.
Okay, I share my
So let's see.
screen. Share screen. I need to give the permission for the share screen.
Okay, maybe if I stop my share, can you share now?
Yep. A second here. Share. You will see from here.
Okay, so
It's on debug.
okay. So you have now a debug session ongoing.
Yep. Okay.
So you need to stop it, and then on top of the screen you have these debugger controls. The blue play button, the blue arrows, then there's the
Yeah.
red square, that's the
Yeah.
stop
So
button.
okay. So I run. Okay. So now it's here. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So that
Now
was
I
the
know what happened.
okay. So you had the debugger running.
Yep.
So if you want to stop it in the middle of the debugger session, you need to click on the red square.
Okay.
Now I think that you clicked on the play button, which means that the debugger was stopped in the breakpoint. When you click on the play button, it continues with the application until the application ends. And
Okay.
that's what happened for you.
Okay. Then I run this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's have a 10-minute break or a 15-minute break. Let's have a 15-minute break, and then we'll continue with the programming things. So we'll continue at 13:25. So I have created this objects.js file, and now the idea is that let's talk about the actual objects. Before we move to the objects, let's consider that what are variables. So variables are names which basically refer to some physical location in the computer memory, and then the computer memory has something stored there. So here we have a variable a, and we have assigned a value 5 there. So and we have declared this variable with this let symbol or name. And as you know, if I do create another like this, now we have two variables, a and b. What is the difference between a and b? Can you detect? What is the difference between a and b? How would you? Of course, their value is 5, and another one is this is another variable, but
difference between data types.
so yeah, so there is that the a is a number and b is now a string. So JavaScript has some different data types. Let's see if the Copilot can list different JavaScript data types. Let's see, can it suggest here? No, it doesn't maybe. No, it doesn't list it correct. Okay, so we have here a number, we have a string. Do you know any other data types what might be part of JavaScript?
Char, integer, float.
Yeah, so these are all numbers. Then we have something known as Boolean. So what's a Boolean? Do you know? It's a Boolean.
Return true or false value, Boolean.
Yes, so we can create here C is, we can have here true, or it can be false. So whenever you want to check something, you can use the AI or you can use the traditional Google, but in any case, this Mozilla Developer Network is really good reference for JavaScript in general. And here we can see that what kind of types we have. We have this Boolean, we have this number, what we have already covered. Then we have a string, and then we have also a null, an undefined, and then there are something as big int, which is like really big numbers, and then there is a symbol, which is more rarely used, something known as a unique and immutable primitive value, usually used as a key of some object property or something. Okay, so but these are the basic primitive values what we have. Okay, so let's now consider the thing that we would start to, for example, to create some application which deals with let's say cars. So if we are would need to represent a car in our application, so maybe we would create, okay, let maybe manufacturer, and maybe it is like it suggested, maybe Toyota. Then maybe we would have a car model, maybe it's a Corolla, maybe the year model, 2019, maybe also the color, let's see, is automatic. Well, we could have that as well. This could be also be that is the gear system automatic or whatever, and is used. Okay, maybe this is enough. Okay, so here we would have information about a single car. Now, if you imagine that in your application you would need to deal with, let's say, an amount of 1,000 different cars. 1,000. Here we have written 1. So what could we do? Well, we could go on here and manufacturer 2, it's Honda. Model 2 would be Civic, and so on. We could declare these same things here. Maybe we would have manufacturer 3, maybe it's still Honda. And then let model 3, okay, that would be Accord, and so on, and so on, and so on. So as you can see, we would have a really big number of these variables. If we would need to have 1,000 different cars represented in our application, we would need to create 1,000 basically copies of these kind of variables. So it would mean that we would end up with 5,000 variables altogether, since each car is represented by a single variable. Okay, and maybe you remember that if you are dealing with a large number of data, usually you maybe want to have it inside an array. So if we would deal with numbers, so maybe we have number 1, maybe it would be 5, number 2, maybe 38. These are just some random numbers. Let's say that you have these numbers in your application, these values. You need to store them for something. Well, you know that, okay, you can use arrays. You can use arrays to store them like this. So this is probably familiar to you. Okay, if we have these, would have, let's say, 1,000 of these numbers, we could put them into array like this. We could have 1,000 of these numbers there. So then we don't have to have 1,000 variables for these numbers, since we could have it in an array. Okay, but what about these cars? If we would have 1,000 cars, it isn't really practical to keep creating these individual variables for the properties of all these cars like this, right? And in any case, if we would like to store these cars in an array, well, we have no good way of doing it with what we know already. So instead of dealing with these kind of things as cars, like this, like now like a real world physical object which has some properties. A car has a manufacturer, it has a model, it has a year, color, and then information. Is the gear system automatic or not? So we can represent this now as an object in our application. We can create an object by using these curly brackets like this. This is called an object literal syntax. In JavaScript, you can create these objects with a couple of different syntaxes. This is one of them. Okay, so an object is basically a collection of properties, and a property is represented by a key and a value. The key is the name of the property, and the value is the value of the property. So now, here we have these car variables. Now when we convert this information into an object structure, we would write it like this. And then we have the is automatic, maybe true. Now here we have a single object, a single variable, which value is now this object. This object has now 5 properties. This is now a property. This is the value of that property. If you would like to create now a second car, this Honda Civic, and what we had here, the Civic year is automatic, well, maybe false. So now we have created 2 objects, and our objects are referenced. They are known with the name car1 and car2. So this variable car1 is now referencing an object. It is variable in the same way as this number 1 is a variable. So now if we go back to this array example and consider that here we had this number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 with these values. So, and here we created a number array by creating an array and directly writing these numbers as initial values there. We could do this also like this, right? This is now an array. You know it's an array because it has this square bracket with number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. These are now the variable names that we have declared here. So the values of this array would be 5, 38, 12, and 1. Okay. When we can understand this, then it is easy to understand also what this means. Now we have an array, and we know it's an array because we have these square brackets here. And this array now contains references for this car 1 and car 2. Exactly the same way what we had here earlier, or number 1, number 2, 3, and 4. We could, of course, initialize this array in the same way what we did here. So with the numbers, value of number 1 is 5. So if we directly initialize it into the array, we write number 5 like this. With this same logic, now I have an empty array. With the same logic, I can of course take this object literal syntax, what I have written here, and assign it to car 1. I can of course use the same syntax also inside here in this array, right? And with the same logic, I separate the elements with the comma. Like so. Car array2 is now an array which holds 2 objects. Both of those objects have property manufacturer, model, year, color, and is automatic. Okay, so what do we do then with these objects and their properties? We do what we want to do, just the same as what you use these variables for. You use variables to hold some data. You use objects to hold some data as well. So if I want to read, if for some reason I would want to print, okay, here, color of the Toyota is the Toyota car here was the color. I could put here, okay, it's red. Now I'm using the color variable. Now it's the debugger attached. Okay, so now it says color of the Toyota is red. So the value of this variable color, we assigned it here, so it was red. Okay. So here. So normal variables you can use in your application to store some values, that means data, and to pass them somewhere else for using. It's exactly the same with objects. If I would like to print out now the color of the Toyota, which is now represented by this car 1. Let's put it here that is green. If I want to print out the color value of this car 1, meaning that this object, now I need to put first the variable what is referencing the object. It is car 1. I write here car 1. And then I need to access the color property of this car 1 here. And I do it with the dot notation. Here with this dot notation. Every time in JavaScript when you see a dot notation, you know that anything on the left must be an object. Anything on the right side must be a property in an object. It's not working. Okay, so here color of the Toyota is red. Color of the car one object is green. So this green part here is now the value of this color property in the car one. If I would like to read the color of the car two, I refer to car two and then the property there. Like so. Okay, so earlier we had this debug exercise and we had this function sum. We had here the A and B, and the expectation was that these are now numbers. So you know how to pass variables to function as a parameter. Of course, you can do it with the object as well. So if I would like, for example, to write print car color, so I will create a function which prints the color of the car, and now the car is given to me as a parameter here. And then I will call this like this. Print car color, and car1 will be given as parameter. So now in the function print car color, I have a parameter named car. So the value of this will be a reference to this one what we gave there. Okay, so now if I write here the statement that the color of the car is car.color. And then I have here like this. A function which takes an object and then prints the color of the car. This should print out car1. Car1 color is green. So here we should have the green. And the car2, the color is blue. So this should print out that it's blue. Let's see. I will comment out these parts. So as you can see, color of the car is green, color of the car is blue. So now this output comes from this function here. I could run it here as well. I have just wrong. The path name added here. So color of the car is green and blue. So here we have now a couple of important basic concepts of objects. And when you can understand this, you can do quite a lot of things. So when you create an object, you can declare it with these curly brackets. This means that you are creating a so-called object literal type of object. You are creating this object here in place. When you do this with these curly brackets, you can declare the object structure, the properties, by writing the property name and then having this column and then the property value. The same logic here follows. You separate these by comma. If you forget about, for example, the comma here, you will see that this will show problems. And if I try to run it, you can see that this is the result unexpected identifier. So the properties are separated by these commas. Okay. And then second important thing. You access these properties with the dot notation. You use the dot. You know that always that on the left side is an object. On the right side is then the property of that object. That, of course, means that if you think about this console.log, on the left side is now an object. So this console is now an object, and this log is now a property. The log now is a property which value is a function. We will do more of that later on. Do you have any questions about this so far? So objects you can create with this curly bracket symbol, and then you use this syntax: key value pairs separated by comma to declare the properties. Now we have here the car array 2, which is now an array which contains 2 objects inside. If we would like to create a function which prints, let's say again, the color of all the cars inside this array, we could do that. Maybe I will go here. The array is visible. So function print colors of cars in array. We declare the parameter car array, and then we write the instruction here. Now the Copilot, well, it correctly suggests that this is what the function structure should be. It does this correctly based on what he has available. What is available here, the car structure is here above, and then the function name gives enough information. But I will write it manually. So the idea is that this is now an array, and in this array, every element is an object of this type. So we are going to be printing the color properties of every element there. You know already that with this kind of syntax, array name and then the square brackets and then some number, you can access an element in an array. So now with the 0 index number, we are accessing the first element. So if I write like this is now with the same logic than what we have had here already. Here in this print car color function, this was now an object. So therefore we can directly write car.color because this is now an object which has the property color. Now when we have an array which contains these objects as its elements, when we want to access a single element, we will need to use the syntax what is used in an array to access a single element. Now we have the 0 index, so the first element. So this is now an object. So therefore, we can use the dot and we use the color. On the left side of the dot, this is now an object, and this is now the property of that object. Okay, so now if I call this function and put the car array 2 there, oh, where is the fun? Fun is not defined. Did I write fun? Yeah. Okay, so here it says color of the car in array is red. So the first element in the car array, it's this one. The color is red. So this is the correct. Now if you want to print the colors of all the cars in the array, we need to loop over. We need to loop over the array. And here the Copilot again suggests correctly the loop function and the loop syntax for the for loop. And then it here again suggests correctly that, okay, color of the car in the array is, it seems car array I.color, exactly what I want. Now I want to comment this out. So here is the array name. We are using the square brackets to access an element in the array from the location determined by this variable I. And the I is now the loop variable, loop index variable. So basically we are executing this statement for every element in the in the array. And the array what we are using is this car array 2 here. As you can see, color of the car in array is first is red, this is the first element, and blue for the second element. This is the second element. Okay. So here we have these basic object initializations. How do you pass an object to a function? How do you read a property in an object? And how do you use objects in an array? These skills are now everything what you need basically to solve the first weekly assignments. You can see here. This is the repository which is now connected to the GitHub classroom, and this is now the weekly assignments. So what I'm talking about is that here is a course model page. It's this weekly assignment. So when you go to this classroom link, you will get the code what is here in this repository. So we can see that what kind of assignment tasks we have. So here, first is a debugging exercise. Or not a debugging exercise, but a normal programming exercise. So you should create a calculator. It takes two parameters, number 1 and 2, and then it takes the operator. And then if it's plus, it should return number 1 plus number 2. If operator is minus, number 1 minus number 2, and so on. So to fix this or to implement this, you must write the code here so that it returns the result of the operation. Task 2. Here are the instructions. Write the function which creates objects describing a person. The function should take 3 arguments, name, surname, and age. And then it should return an object with the following properties. So now you must write code here which creates and returns objects like this. And then you write your code here. If you have cloned this repository, you first execute npm install in the local repository folder. It will install the dependencies. Then you edit this week 1 in your own local machine. You write your code, these functions. Then you can test it by running npm run test. In this file, there is a bunch of test cases which will execute. So on your local machine, you can run the tests and see how they work and what is the result of your implementation. Then when you make a commit to the repository what you get from these classrooms, then the GitHub Classroom assignment functionality will automatically run the test and then validate your submission. Here is a YouTube link, and I suggest that you watch this and you will get better understanding of how the classroom works. And I suggest that you start to work on these exercises today. If you have some questions, then you can ask about those questions in our Teams channel. And then additionally, we have weekly support sessions, which are visible in your calendar. So if we go to the calendar schedule, you can see here on Wednesday, a support session has been listed. So these support sessions are that you can ask some questions and then get some support on anything related to the course. Next lesson is that we have is on Friday. Then we will continue. Okay, thank you and have a nice day. Bye.